our chief guest has a good experience and knowledge to share with us. So now we request our chief guest, Mr. Venkatachalam, to enlighten the gathering with his wise words. Please, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, madam. Am I audible? Can you just comment on the
Yes,
chat
yes,
window?
Please go ahead, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. So good morning to one and all. It's a big privilege for me to be addressing close to 100 students here on your virtual symposium that you're conducting as a part of Esperanza 21. I'm told that this is the fourth edition of Esperanza, right? I'll try to keep my talk as brief as possible, but it will still run to about 20-25 minutes, I think. And I will try and give you some practical tips that you engineering students can take away from here. Because not too long ago, I mean, I'm just talking about 22 years back, I was also an engineering student attending a lot of symposiums back in Chennai. So I'll just trace my journey and I will try to give you a few tips that you can also follow if you think it is applicable for you, right? So a brief introduction about myself. I have been based out of UK for the last six and a half years. Prior to that, all through my 15 years of career, I have been involved with data science as well as AI, ML, building models for banks, travel industry, putting out large data platforms on the cloud, etc. Across geographies, not just UK. I've worked in multiple geographies: Southeast Asia, Africa, Middle East, Europe, US, etc. So it's been a long journey, but I will not bore you with each and everything that I have done. Instead, I want to compartmentalize this talk into four things. So one is what I did when I was a student like you during my engineering days, then how I did my higher studies, right? And then I will also talk about what are the few things that you can follow, especially during placement season. How do you build a good profile for yourself? And then finally, some life tips, right? So that is what I will try and cover. So first thing, right? I passed out of my 12th standard in 1999 and I didn't score, very high marks. Let's put it that way. I was a very average performer during school. And those days, there was an engineering entrance exam called TNPCE exam that you have to write in order to secure an engineering admission. So I didn't get through DOT 1. I got a payment seat in a college in Chennai called Jaya Engineering College. Jaya Engineering College was only 4 years in operation at that time. I got a seat in information technology. The batch was just starting. It was just 30 people who started with my batch. And that's how my journey began in engineering. So since I didn't study very well in school, I ensured that I have to study better, at least in college, right? So one of the first things that I did was, promise to myself that I will put in all the efforts and I will try to make use of this opportunity in engineering and get a first rank in college, right? So that was one of my first goals that I had in mind. So at the end of first year of engineering, I got about 88.3%, which was a very good percentage, right? But I was not college first, I was college second. So I started comparing myself with the first rank student. I was 5 marks away from her. And then I was sulking about it, right? So I was thinking, why can't I be the first person? I need to definitely beat her in the next semester, beat her in the sense, score better than her and, come college first. That's when my engineering drawing professor in my third semester advised me that what will happen if that first rank student flunks tomorrow in third semester, right? Are you also going to flunk but still get 1 mark more than her? So don't try and compare yourself with others. Try to have a benchmark, get inspiration from others around you, but try to be a better version of yourself every day, right? And that is one advice that I would like to give you. Some of you might be in your first year engineering, or some of you might be in your fourth year engineering, etc. So one of the goals that you need to have is ensure that you're performing better than how you performed last semester. So try to have a benchmark for yourself and try to keep going towards that benchmark, right? So for students who are, what we classify or, what we typically identify as middle bench students or backbench students who might be struggling a little bit in terms of academics, as a first goal, ensure that you try and clear the papers in the first attempt. because it's not easy having arrears and, chasing arrears semester after semester. It's not easy at all. Already you will be, by the last count, you might be writing some 38 to 52 papers during that 4-year period, right? Don't try to, increase the burden yourself as you progress the semesters. So try to clear papers then and there. That should be your first benchmark. The second benchmark is how can you get better score and better knowledge in the subject that you're studying, right? So be a better version of yourself is the first thing that I will say. At the end of 4 years, I still stood first in the college, but I stopped comparing myself with others. I only looked at excellence. I only looked at putting a benchmark for myself and beating myself. That should be your goal. Of course, I always took inspiration from all my friends. I formed study groups. I helped my friends. We all had a lot of combined study sessions. We shared notes, etc. But the competition was just within me. That is very important, right? So that's my first tip as a student. Second is, in my third semester, I met with a major accident during the exams. So I finished 3 papers. After that, I met with a major accident. And then I had to be hospitalized. I had about 22 stitches in my right hand, which is my writing hand, right? I still have the scar marks, etc. I was diagnosed with tissue tuberculosis. So after 3 exams, it was on a weekend that I met with an accident. I was in the emergency room, got my stitches, and then on Monday I turned up for the exam, right? I was not able to, I was carried into the exam hall, and then I was not allowed a scribe because there were university rules that we need to follow. So scribes were not allowed. So with 22 stitches on my hand, I wrote the remaining 3 exams, right? Why I'm saying this is, this event actually made me realize that I had a quality called resilience, right? So no matter what, if you are faced with a challenge, if you are faced with a constraint, it is more than the external demons, it's the internal demons that you need to fight, right? You need to trick your mind into believing that I will be able to conquer these challenges. So whatever challenges you face, don't sulk about it. Or, it's very easy to become negative and say that, I didn't get a scribe. Blame the external factors for your failure and move on. That is an easy way out, right? But create that fighting ability within you so that any constraints you have, if it is a tough paper, or sometimes you might not have enough support in a particular subject. For some of these new age subjects like AIML, you might not find a lot of resources also, right? So it's very easy to blame all these factors and not do well, right? But try to overcome that is my second tip, right? No matter what, try to overcome that. And if you're able to overcome that successfully, right, you will be able to tell that story 20 years later to a bunch of engineering students, like the way I am doing it now. So this one incident changed my life, and I used this incident to my strength throughout my career, right? So when I appeared for my IIM interviews also, when the panelists, because I will talk about how I got into IIM also, but when the panelists asked me, why should we take you in? Why should you come into IIM? What is that one quality that differentiates you from 1 lakh people who have written CAT exam, right? Then I narrated the story and I used this story to my advantage, right? So whenever you are having a challenge, think of it as an opportunity and try to overcome. That's my second tip. Third thing, right? Since I took information technology, and to all credits to my college, they tried really hard to give us the best possible lecturers, the best possible resources, etc. But there will always be gaps, even in your college or in your friend's college. There will be some gaps because if it's a new subject that is launching, right? If it is AIML, for example, you will always know more than us, right? As students, you have a lot more resources today. You have Google, you have Udemy, you have Coursera, you have YouTube, right? So you will always know more, and you will think that you know a lot more than the lecturers also at some instances. But that is not true, right? There is something called experience that the lecturers have, which you don't have. What you should do is, rather than thinking that, I'm not getting the right resources or right support, try to augment what you get, with discussions with your teachers. Try to lean on their experience, right? The way of questioning should be for furthering your knowledge and not to challenge the person who is there on the stage. That should not be the attitude, right? The attitude should be to augment what you get outside be it Coursera courses or YouTube or Google, etc., with the experience that the faculty members are bringing in, and have a healthy discussion to progress towards a knowledge base, a collective knowledge base, right? In my engineering days also, I had these gaps. We again saw this as an opportunity. So some of the students, we combined together, we scouted for resources, we went and bought a lot of books, we studied ourselves, and then we shared that knowledge with our study groups, right? So there were instances where, we couldn't get the lecturers on time for us for certain courses because information technology as a group was just coming by, right? But we took it as an opportunity, and then we taught our own peer groups. What that did was it gave me 2 or 3 advantages, right? Which lifelong is, persisting with me. Search for this person by name Richard Feynman. There is a learning technique called Feynman learning technique, right? Feynman. Richard Feynman is a famous American physicist. So his teaching technique is world renowned, and it is so impressive that Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft, actually did a project called Silverlight Project, where he acquired all the old videos of Feynman teaching, and then he created a software called Silverlight software, I think about 10-15 years back. Feynman's way of teaching is very simple, and this is something that you as students should also follow. When you're reading a concept, write down what is that you're learning, right? And try to explain what you learned to a 6th standard student, right? To somebody who doesn't know the concept. So if you are able to explain what you learned to somebody who is 12 years old or 13 years old who doesn't know AI/ML, for example, or digital signal processing, if you're able to explain at that level, it means that you have understood the concept very well. Your foundations are very well. And in the interview, any questions I would be able to ask, you would be able to answer it with a lot of authority, right? So whatever you study, right, try to take notes, try to structure your thoughts. And if there are gaps in your knowledge, that is when you will realize there are gaps in your knowledge, because a 12-year-old will not understand a lot of concepts and he will ask you questions. So you will be able to explain it better and better. A lot of things you will also realize that you have not understood, right? So that will ensure that you will go and search for that knowledge and you will plug in that gap. So it's very important that we do that. So that's my third tip, right? So if you think there are gaps in your subjects, right? Or you're not able to understand the concept, seek that knowledge, okay? Google does not have answers for everything. Try to use something called as library, right? Where there are printed books available, right? Get your foundation right and try to explain that to 10 other people in your circle, right? That will ensure that your foundation is very, very strong. That's my third tip. What we also did towards the 3rd and 4th year of engineering was we conducted a lot of mock group discussions and interviews ourselves. Okay, so those days the campus placements were very, very less when it comes to the number of colleges attracting companies. So it was either College of Engineering, Gindi, or Anna University, or Venkateshwara Engineering College, and so on, right? The rest of the colleges used to not get that many companies, right? Also, getting a job was a challenge because the Y2K boom had just gone down, and then the VoIP boom had also just gone down. So 2002, 2003 was not a great year when it came to IT, right? So what we did was we used our free time during 3rd and 4th year engineering college to create a lot of mock group discussions and extempore speeches in English and so on. Why I'm saying this is, till my 12th standard, I was a very good orator in Tamil, right? But my English was a little questionable. I was still able to speak, but I used to use a lot of filler words like, or I used to take a lot of pauses in between, right? And I used to struggle to find the right English words to express myself. So my English will always have a lot of Tamil words also in between. Nothing wrong with that, because people come from varied background. Some of you might come from, say, like even in my college, we had people coming from Tamil medium or Telugu medium, from other states, etc. But what you have to realize is engineering is a professional course and it is taught in English. Tomorrow, when you're going for a job, especially in IT services, most of your clients will be either US clients or UK clients. Even if it's going to be India clients, the communication, the medium will be in English. You don't have to have a flamboyant communication skill in English, right? You don't have to be like grammatically perfect, not at all. But as long as you're able to express yourself with confidence, with clarity, in such a way that the other person is able to understand what you really are, communicating and is able to respond, then that's it. That's what you should strive for. So we used to have all these mock GDs and mock interview sessions during our third year and fourth year, and we all struggled a lot. In fact, some of us were not able to speak continuously in English for 3 minutes also. But however, over a period of time, we were able to give feedback to each other and we were able to improve, right? So that is something that you need to look at. So that is my fourth step. So, try to improve your communication. Again, you need not be grammatically perfect, but as long as you are able to talk about yourself, the projects that you have done, and you're able to explain the concepts in a very clear way in English, right? Most of the interviews would be a cakewalk. If you want, we can have a separate session on some of these tips for how to crack a group discussion. Because when you get into a group discussion, especially if some of you are aspiring for higher studies like an IIM interview, or there are companies that also do GDs, group discussions, to see how you behave in a group, etc. There are ways in which you can make yourself heard. And when I say make yourself heard, it is not the loudest voice that gets heard, by the way. So listening is also a part of communication, right? How you respond to people is also a part of communication. How you put in your points as 1, 2, 3, 4, in crystal clear bullets is also a part of communication, right? So we can have a separate session on that if you guys are interested. So that's my fourth step. In fact, I'm not preaching what I'm not practicing. I have also taken down points that I wanted to share. So it's important that you prepare even after 16 years of experience, knowing that I'm going to address a crowd who is probably 25 years or 24 years younger than me. I still take each of this very seriously, and that's the same amount of seriousness that you should also be bringing in. Okay, do not have any casual approach to anything you do, be it even the symposium, right? There is something called as a technical paper presentation that is going to happen, right? Take it very seriously. Okay, think of it as a practice match for your interviews, right? Because here it is all your known crowd. Who's going to laugh at you if you're going to make a mistake? It's your own friends, right? It's better to make these mistakes in front of your home crowd than to go to an interview and then struggle, right? So that is my fourth step. Then I'll just quickly go on to higher studies before coming into IT services, right? So as far as higher studies was concerned, so I told you which college I went to, right? Since it was a very new college, not many people have gone to IIMs before. So typically those days, people who used to get into IIMs, and there were only 6 IIMs. I think now there are 12 IIMs. So IIM is, for those who do not know, Indian Institute of Management. It's one of the premier business schools in India, right? And some of it, some of the news articles say that it is as good as a Harvard or such. It's an Ivy League school, is what people say. So getting into IIMs was very difficult. I don't know how it is right now, given that the number of seats are higher and number of IIMs are higher. I don't know what is the competition today, but those days, only 1,000 people or so, or less than 1,000 people used to get an admission in one of the 6 IIMs. And there used to be about 120,000 people who used to write this entrance exam called CAT, right? So to dream for CAT, and if you look at the profile of people who got into IIMs, they were typically, people from an IIT background, or, some of these bigger, well-known rank 1, rank 2, rank 3 colleges, engineering colleges in India, right? Or non-engineering colleges, like very premier institute students is, who used to gun for these. But the point is, since I saw this challenge again as an opportunity, and I thought that if I could get into IIM, I would be the first of the many who can follow from colleges like mine, right? It can be an inspiration for my juniors. Everybody can start dreaming about it. And it will also give me a good platform to talk about, dreaming big. So started preparing for CAT around the third year mark. And then, I scouted for hundreds and hundreds of mock papers from other institutes. And then my everyday routine used to be like, at 5 a.m. I will wake up, I will write a mock paper, then I will go to college, do my engineering courses, then come back, write another mock paper. And then weekend I used to attend all these CAT coaching centers, etc. So this was my regime for almost close to a year, right? And in the end, I scored about 99.94 percentile or whatever, which is like in the top 300, top 400 all India rank among 1 lakh people. So you have to start with an end in mind, right? If some of you are aspiring for higher studies, be it MS or MTech, right? I don't know what other courses you have, or even MBA in one of the IIMs, right? Start with an end goal in mind, no matter how big the goal is, right? So think about that goal, where you want to be, and then make the process of getting to that goal as the goal itself. Okay, so don't look at the outcome. So getting into IIM is your dream, was my dream. But even if I have not got into IIM, I would have still been very happy, because that entire 1 year preparation was what my goal was. It was such an enjoyable journey, every day having a crack at mock exams, then going and rubbing shoulders in the coaching classes with people from IITs, debating with them, sharing my thoughts, looking at where my peer group was and where I was. I was able to plug my gap. So I figured out that I'm not heard in group discussions, for example, because GD is an integral part of IIM intake. So then I started looking at techniques to improve, my ability to speak in a crowd, right? And how do I interject? If there are 20 people and we are given only 10 minutes, right? And 20 people means on an average, you will get only 30 seconds. There will always be people who are aggressive, who try to take 3 to 4 minutes of the time, which means you're constrained. You're trying to, somehow get into that discussion. So how do I, be very smart about it? And even in the 10 seconds that I get, how do I ensure that I give enough punchlines that will be remembered by the panelists there, so that I am selected for the interview round, right? So those were some of the things that I was able to plug in, and it was a huge learning experience. At the end of the day, even if I had not got an admission, I would have still been very happy with the progress that I made, right? So make the journey of getting into an end dream that you have as the goal itself, so that irrespective of the outcome, you will still be very happy of what you have achieved, right? So that is on the higher studies part that I wanted to cover. Coming to IT services. So a lot of people might be going in for a job, right? Maybe, 70-80% of you would be looking for a job, and 20-30% might go for higher studies. Now, I don't know if you know the statistics. Do you know how many people are being employed by IT services and BPM today in India? It's one of the largest services sector employers, right? IT services. There are about 40 lakhs people, 40 to 43 lakh people who are working in this sector. Some of the big companies, etc., the well-known companies that you know of, be it the IBMs of the world, Infosys, HCL, or my own company, etc. So if you look at all these IT services employers put together, there are about 42 lakh engineers who are working today. But do you know how many engineers pass out on a yearly basis in India? There are about, I think, 3,500 engineering colleges, right? And roughly about 8 to 10 lakh engineers pass out, right? Anywhere between 8 to 12 lakhs. I don't know the exact numbers, but that is my guesstimate. Now, every year, IT services employ about 2 to 3 lakh people, right? So which means if 10 lakh engineers pass out, there are only about 2 to 3 lakh people who will get an IT job. The remaining will go into core engineering services, or, they might start their own business, or they will figure out some job or the other, right? But the point is, if you have to be differentiated in this crowd, right, the chances of you getting into IT services is only 2 out of 10. That is so 10 lakh people pass out and 2 lakh people get hired, right? So that is the competition that you are going to face. So in such a scenario, what are the things that you can do, right, in order to ensure that you are noticed and you are among that 2 to be employed by the IT services sector? So that is what I'm going to tell you. So first is build a good CV. Okay. So when I look at freshers CV, I see that some of the candidates have not even done a spell check or a grammar check, right? Because it might look trivial, Okay. And I will try to alternate between Tamil and English here because I'm assuming most of the crowd is also Tamil. இது நான் சொல்றது வந்து ரொம்ப குழந்தைத்தனமா இருக்கும். ஏன்னா ஸ்பெல்லிங் மிஸ்டேக்கோட ரெஸ்யூமே கொடுத்துருக்காங்களே அப்படின்னு. But what that says to me about the candidate is his attention to details is lacking. Right? So if you have not done a proper spell check or proper grammatical error check, etc., it means that the candidate is not sincere. That is the perception I will get. In reality, you might not, right? So try to review your CV with 2 or 3 people. There are faculty members here who can help you out, right? There are spell check and Grammarly kind of free softwares that are available. So, and plus there are a lot of templates available. So try to have show your sincerity in the way you present your resume. One. Second, even small things, right? Even your email IDs that you have. See, there are some email IDs like, I am for you forever at yahoo.com. Try to see that can be your personal email ID, right? But when it comes to job, try to have an email ID that is reflective of your name, right? So that is very important because again, that shows some amount of seriousness and professionalism. Again, there's not hard and fast rules, just some tips that I'm, giving you. Third thing is, most of the interviews today will be virtual because of pandemic situation. So when you are getting into a virtual interview, right, like this, ensure that you have good lighting, right? Dress up properly. And when you dress up properly, it also means that some amount of seriousness will automatically come in, right? There is no need for, say, Victor sir to be informals today or for me to be informals today. But by being informals, it is giving me a bit more seriousness to address the students here, right? So there is some amount of responsibility that comes in as to, what is that I'm going to talk to you, right? So that is one. Second, the lighting has to be good. Ensure that the mic is working properly, right? So all of these small things you will have to take care of. Fourth thing on your CV that you have to do is, a lot of times people copy paste hobbies or other interests or their project work, etc. on the CV. Don't do that. Why? Because most of the time, okay, in an interview, some of the questions that are being asked is driven by what you write on the CV. So on your CV, right, if you have written, I read novels, and then I ask the next question, what is the recent novel that you have written, right? You have read. And if you're not able to tell me the title, the author, and at least 4 lines about the novel, right, it will mean that you have not done a very sincere attempt at telling, or you're not having an honest resume, right? So write only things that you're confident about talking, because that is going to lead into the next questions, right? And prepare very, very well on whatever you have written. At least 4 to 5 lines you should be able to talk about each of the points that you have written there. Okay, so that's my 4th tip. 5th tip is, see, not holders, right? Not everybody would be distinction holders. Some of you, unfortunately, might have had some arrears on some tough papers and so on and so forth. That's all fine, right? Everybody understands that. But I'm not saying that, that should be the norm. Be very sincere when you're studying. But if you're not able to score very well, there are other things that you can do which will show you in good light. For example, symposiums like this, right? If you have attended many symposiums and you have written technical papers, and if some of them has been published, then you are actually having a better digital footprint also being created for you, right? So if you are participating in hackathons, and even if you have not won in those hackathons, what you should do is you should have all those codes on GitHub and have a public profile for yourself. Okay, participate in websites like Stack Overflow, ask questions under your real name. So that shows that you're technically very inclined on forums also, right? And having many such symposiums, presenting papers also shows that you're going beyond your subjects, and also trying to research on areas that you're not very comfortable with, right? So these are all some of the additional points that you can have in your CV if you're irrespective of your academic scores, right? Then 6th thing I would say is enhance your problem solving skills. Okay, I can give you a detailed example on what is logical problem solving, and what is efficiency of a code, effectiveness of a code, and all that. We will do it in a separate workshop sometime later, right? But however, when you are given a problem statement, right, straight away don't try to search for the solution on the net, even as students, right? First, Feynman technique, okay? Understand the problem, write down the problem, right? Write down possible solutions in plain English. Some of the basic foundational blocks, like, flowchart. You don't have to literally draw a flowchart, but at least write down the steps for solving the problem. Logical thinking. Don't straight away open an IDE and code in Java or Python, etc. First, construct the solution, because once you have the solution in hand, then converting it into a language is not a big deal. Anybody can search for the language syntax and convert it into a solution. But how you are thinking and how you are approaching the problem is very, very important on the solution side. And when you're also coding, right, especially when you're going to build an online profile for yourself, like a GitHub repository, right, ensure that your documentation is, thorough. When I say documentation, you don't have to write a business requirement document or a solution document. Just within the code, right, write a lot of common statements. Okay, do have proper intents created, right, so that the code looks very neat. Just like in your school where you used to have extra marks for your presentation and, handwriting, etc. Your sincerity is reflected in the way you write your code. Okay. So whenever I write codes, right, I will first have the entire problem restated in my comments. Then for every block of the code, I will first start off in plain English in the comment saying that what does this piece of code do, right? Similarly, all my variables will be declared upfront. And then towards the end, I will also tell about the test cases that I have written to check whether the code is working or not. So this is nothing but documentation, right? Ensure that the comments are there. It explains the code in plain English, even to a person who does not understand Java. So just by reading the comments, you should know what this program is doing. That will show, again, reflect your sincerity. Then, seventh thing that you can do on your CV is, apart from the 38 or 50 engineering subjects that you're learning, if you can also do some e-learning courses. Again, it is not about the certification you're doing, right? It can be a Coursera certification, it can be Udemy certification, it can be anything. It doesn't matter. Even if you don't do certification also, it's fine. But having, gone through some e-learning courses, right? That will tell me, because today what is happening is there is something called as a half-life of knowledge. So what it means is, if you're studying a technology, if you're learning a technology today, it might become irrelevant in another 3 to 5 years. For example, cloud did not exist to this level 10 years ago. AIML is again very, very hot today. But 10 years from now, we don't know what it is. Even companies understand that. So we are not, at least when I interview, I don't look at people with strong Python skills. I look at people with logical problem solving skills, right? Second, your openness to learning. And how will I know your openness to learning? If I know that even though there is no cloud course today in your academic subject, but if you have gone out of the way and read about it, right, through an e-learning course, it means that you are somebody who is open to change and you are open to self-learning, because that is one trait that is very, very important once you enter into IT services companies, right? So do some of that, which can, be a point in your CV. I think more or less I've covered what I wanted on the CV side. Yeah, very important, right? On your engineering project, right? I know, or rather I have heard that you can today go out and buy engineering projects, right? Don't do that, right? We all know that you're not going to solve the world's problem in your engineering project, okay? Some of you might do wonderful projects. You might, solve a very niche problem. That is all given, but not everybody can do it. However, even if you do a normal project, right? A, do it yourself. B, try to differentiate that in a small way. Okay. So my engineering project was, along with two of my friends from college, was building a payslip program on Java. It's a very normal problem to solve, right? Every company has already solved it. So we built a payslip portal where an employee can log in and download his payslip. But where we differentiated that was, we use something called as function point estimation for that entire project. So earlier, if you have to estimate a project, people used to use something called as lines of code estimation and so on. I'm talking about 20 years back. So now obviously the techniques might look a little obsolete. But at that time, function point estimation was a new thing. So we implemented that and we said that to do this project, this is the total FP estimation that we have come up with. And then we did a project. The project itself was normal, but our method, we differentiated that with one simple thing. Same way, even if you're doing a very normal project, right? Try to have one unique aspect, okay? So that in your interview, you can talk about that one unique aspect for 1 hour, okay? So that is very, very important. Do your own project and try to differentiate that with something which is, very, very small, okay? Try to differentiate that. Then the eighth thing that I would like to talk about is having your foundations correct, right? If you look at today data science models, okay, some of you might have come across linear regression, random forest, neural networks, etc. Most of you would have done these programs using libraries that are available in Python. Try to understand what is happening inside the library. That is very critical. When I build my models or when my team builds the models, if I go to the business user and say that I have built a CNN model and using this model, I have predicted how many people are, outliers or whatever, whatever be the use case, the business user will not understand anything. Okay. If I go and tell him about some random forest model or, forward propagation, and if I use all these high sounding terms, nobody will be able to understand that. I have to break it down into, user understandable language. And I will be able to do that only if I myself know what is happening inside the library. Okay. So 15 years back, when I wrote programs in SAS, a linear regression model used to, have say 100 lines of code. Today, it is a single line of code, right? Using a scikit library, you can just, invoke a library and push in parameters and then get an answer. But if you don't know what is happening inside, you will never be able to explain to a business end user. So get your foundations right. You don't have to learn, especially for data science students or computer science students, you don't have to learn all the models there. Even if you learn 2 models, like what is linear regression, what is random forest, that is good enough. We don't expect you to know everything under the sun, right? So that's my other tip. And then finally, one last thing. I know Victor sir has been working very hard to get companies on campus, right? Make use of that, right? Ensure that you do well in those interviews, right? Prepare very well for those interviews. Come well dressed. Rehearse your answers. Most of the questions are very, very standard, right? At least 50% of the interview questions are very standard. Talk to your seniors, talk to the placement officer, try to get the list of questions, prepare well, get in front of the mirror, talk, okay? Or in fact, instead of recording TikTok videos or dubmash videos, record your answers and play it back to yourself. Only then you will be able to spot the errors that you're doing. Even today, I'm 40 years old, 16 years of experience. Even today, what I will do is post this. I will actually go and listen to the entire talk that I just gave, and I will try to critically analyze what are the mistakes I'm doing. Right? If I am using a lot of all these non-lexical filters, I will try to consciously fix it the next time. And you will only be able to do it if you start listening to yourself, right? So record your answers, play it back, see where your gaps are, and then rehearse it well. Because you don't get a lot of chances when it comes to campus placement, right? A company comes, they might be interviewing 100 people, they might have only 10 offers that they can give, right? How do you ensure that you're one among the 10? Right? So ensure that you prepare very, very thoroughly and well for these interviews. So that's my last tip when it comes to your job. So I've covered higher studies a little bit, and then your CV, your profile, etc. I'd like to end this with one more small thing. This is more like a tip for your life, right? This is something that I've learned in the last 15, 16 years. There will always be points of despair in your life. நிறைய விஷயங்கள் கொஞ்சம் கடுப்பா இருக்கும். ஓகே, அது வந்து இன்ஜினியரிங் டேஸ்லயும் இருக்கட்டும், இல்லாட்டி ஒர்க்லயும் இருக்கட்டும். ஓகே, you will feel you have reached a dead end, you will be stuck, or you will be overwhelmed by a lot of things that are happening around you. So what helped me during these times is I had two hobbies. Okay, two types of hobbies. One is you should have a physically exhausting hobby. It can be running, it can be cycling, it can be yoga, something to do with a physical activity. Because what will happen is you will undergo a lot of stress, you have a lot of information, and sometimes you will lose sleep over it. So if you physically tire yourself out, you will get a sound sleep. Okay, so it's like tricking your mind. So have one hobby which will be like a கொஞ்சம் frustrated இருந்தேன்னா நான் அதை பண்ணேன்னா I will feel better about myself, right? So have one. Second is have an intellectually stimulating or intellectually challenging hobby. For me, it is reading books. Okay. And I read a wide variety. It is not just technical books I read. I read a wide variety of books. Okay. What it has done is, at least in my client-facing roles, it was a great conversation starter for me. So somebody was, talking about, history. And I've read about a lot about World War I, World War II, the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution. So I was able to have a lot of conversation other than just data science and cloud with that person. I was able to connect very well with that client. So once I connect well with the client, everything else that I said, right, had a lot more weight to it. So I was able to build that personal rapport. So once you read a variety of things in your life, your knowledge will also expand, your perspectives will also become better. So have one hobby like that. It can be anything. It can be reading books. It can be solving Sudoku or Rubik's Cube. Anything, right? Which is out of your academics. So spend that time also so that you have that lifelong. So this is all I wanted to share. Make use of this forum, this symposium very, very well. I have seen the events. Some of them are quite interesting. You even have a gaming session, I believe. There is a code hackathon. Then there is a workshop on website building. Use that to build a good profile for yourself, which can get into your CV, right? So use all of that. And I will probably, show you one slide which just summarizes all that I said. Let me know if you're able to see it. Are you able to see this?
Yes, sir. Okay, so now we can see, sir.
Yeah. So this is just a summary of all that I said now. Okay. So I will share this with the placement officer and the HOD, right? And this is very, very important, right? The last tip, and I saved the best for the last. So this is very, very important. You are the average of the top 5 people you spend time with. Okay. I'm not saying that, immediately unfriend a few people. I'm not saying that. But always ensure that your peer group is better than you. Okay. So the 5 people that you spend time with outside your friend circle should be challenging you in some aspect, be it in knowledge, be it in perspectives, be it in your thought process, because that is the only way you can further yourself. Okay. So only when you talk to people who are more successful than you, or who know things more than you, who are more experienced than you, it can be your teachers, or it can be your mentors, or it can be your own classmates, who are good at certain subjects, right? So try to choose that group very, very wisely and spend time with them. Okay, be open to that. So with that, I will end this session. I definitely look forward to interacting with some of you. My LinkedIn profile is there. You can always connect with me if you need if you need more things to be known. And have all the best for the symposium. Have a very successful symposium. I would personally be looking at least the top 5 or 10 technical papers. If somebody can send me, I would be happy to read through it in my leisure time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for enlightening us with your kind words of wisdom and for being an ideal role model for all of us.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for your wonderful speech, and it was very useful for the students community. Sir, open ஆ சொல்லணும்னா கொஞ்சம் கூட போர் அடிக்கல சார். இந்த ஒரு 45 minutes ரொம்ப யூஸ்ஃபுல்லா இருந்துச்சு. நான் faculty sir, myself Vigneshwaran, I'm working as assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science. So which was a very motivational session, and I hope we will share a few more points in the forthcoming days, sir. Thank you.
Sure.
And I thank Victor sir for arranging the program as a chief guest like you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir, Dr. Sir,
HOD sir.
Sir.
HOD sir, yes.
Sir, ரொம்ப nice speech sir. ரொம்ப thanks sir. Wonderful speech
Sure,
is very useful to our students and also external participants sir. Wonderful sir.
Sure, sir.
Thanks for spending your time sir.
Sure. Thanks, sir. Pleasure is all mine, sir.
Great, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Vignesh sir and HOD sir said, it's going to be a memorable day for all of our students, sir. Your thought-provoking informations will be much more useful for them for their better career growth, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Take care of yourself, sir.
Thank
On
you.
behalf of management, principal, HODs, professors of CSE department and students, we take the privilege to thank you for gracing your humble presence to enlighten our students, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Please, sir. Great, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Victor, sir, for wonderful resource person arranging our department. Thank you, sir.